This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor John Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
Glad to have you here with us on the Retirement Solution. I'm Heather Branch, here with financial advisor John Hicks, founder and CEO of J. Hagan Capital, where every single day they are working to help folks figure out this thing called retirement, because it's not what it used to be. And when it comes to having that proper plan in place, it takes a little bit more effort nowadays, but you don't have to do it by yourself. John and his team are here to help. You can get that conversation going, retirementsolutionradio.com, or just click on the links we've got posted in the show notes. Again, it's retirementsolutionradio.com. Put me in, coach. 'Tis the season.
Are you ready to play today?
You and
I tell you what, I
love baseball.
I've got little girls, and so we have not seen nearly as many baseball games as I saw growing up.
You should take them. That's why I'm into baseball. My dad had two daughters, and we grew up baseball fans.
Yeah. So we do, but we're not in a major league city.
That's right.
So there's a little difference there.
There's that, yeah.
So and so there's just a handful of things. We see a lot of college games. Those always happen, kind of earlier in the spring, and are kind of done by summertime. So, we've done a handful of times. Now we end up doing, because they do have passions, we end up seeing a lot more soccer things, a lot more college basketball than I grew up with. A lot more college football that I was able to go to, because being from Owensboro, not a whole lot of college football there. So now that we're in Louisville and only an hour from Lexington, as opposed to 2.5 hours from Louisville and 4 hours nearly from Lexington, then we get to see a lot more college games. But I miss baseball, and I know what you're going to say, because we talked about it maybe a month ago.
We have talked about the idea of the new rules that were implemented.
So I've been to 3 games. I've not been able to take the kids, but I've been to 3 major league games.
It's refreshing, isn't it?
Since this has been implemented. I love it.
I
thought I would hate it. I thought it would destroy the fabric of the game.
It doesn't.
I was wrong, and I stand right there and just say, no. It is fabulous.
The pitch
10
clock
times better than I ever thought it would be.
Is so great, because now games that, and I love baseball, but some of these games that would go on for 4 or 5 hours, I'm like, come on. I have got things to do.
No kidding.
So now you can go to a 7 o'clock game on a Friday night or Saturday night, and it's it's done by 9:30, 10. Yes.
Baseball and golf were always so hard, because you're just like, you just never know how long they're going to play, and it made it difficult. So I never, in all of the major events that have been in the region, I've not really been to very many professional golf tournaments in the region.
Yeah.
But baseball, only now, I'm like, man, I can pretty much plan on 2.5 to 3 hours.
Yeah, you can do
That's okay, not 5 or 6.
That's right.
Here's
the thing, though. There is consequence to this new love of speeding things up that you and I have.
You mentioned this. I need to hear this, because I wanted to know. You're going to talk about fewer stadium sales, less beer
there's
revenue?
That. Mm-hmm. That's what we were talking about before, some of the other things.
Less concession revenue. There was one more thing. That's the big one, though. Less concession revenue for the teams themselves.
Nobody was expecting that, right? Shorten the games, shorten your amount. Like the MLB owners are probably going to have to get together and figure out, how do we create a tailgating community in the MLB?
That would be genius. And what they need to do is just go ahead and have people served out there in the stands or whatever else, or give them something else.
That's right.
So, but hold on. What's the rest of the aftermath?
There's an increase in injuries now with pitchers. They are getting hurt much more often. And as you played baseball in college, you were both fans of baseball. Anybody that knows baseball at all knows the value of a good pitcher. They are worth their weight in not just gold, but gold, platinum, silver, all the things.
Absolutely.
So we're looking at Major League Baseball now having to deal with, because they're rushing through their process, it's putting extra stress apparently on their arms, causing more fatigue. And you know that when muscles get fatigued, that opens you up to injury. And so it's a whole thing that the MLB is having to deal with now. But, because it's 2 sides of it. It's like, but also the MLB was losing fans. So you got to keep the fans happy. Business. And so are they attributing those injuries? Yeah.
Pretty much to the speed of the game. It's going quicker. They're getting more fatigue. They're causing more issues, maybe more strain.
Yep.
That is amazing. Because pitching, that is kind of like the ultimate weapon.
Yep.
That's what makes the pros so different. If you go to see a minor league ball game, AA or AAA, the 2 higher of the minor leagues, the hitters can be pretty much just like the pro hitters.
Right.
It's the pitching that's so different. At the next level, at the pros, at the bigs, a major league pitcher is dominant in those lower levels. Yep. They just often are, and it's crazy. So if they're getting more injuries, this is going to be interesting. We'll have to see how this kind of pans out in the long run. But I can actually think about many things. I mean, you can even go back. This is interesting about when you skip the process or you don't give as much prep time, how it can cause all kinds of not good things, right?
Yep. And that's what I wanted to bring up to you, sir. Mm-hmm.
That is amazing, because when you just said that, I just immediately thought to my head, imagine going back a few years and all of a sudden we hear there's this COVID thing. And immediately everyone comes together, all of the major pharmaceuticals, and they start trying to push it together to try to create a vaccine or a fix-all type of thing, right? And everyone kept saying, you got to be careful. I know we all want to go back to the real world. I know we do, but you got to be careful. This is why it takes 5 or 6 years of clinical trials to be certain. They're like 5 or 6 years, my foot, you got 5 or 6 months. Right. That's what you got. And all of a sudden we push this thing out, and we still don't know what the aftermath of some of these COVID vaccinations we got really are. There are a lot of things that we've seen in the sidelines, but that's very different than we're talking about the pros. But I'm just talking about in general, when you start speeding things up and then not having an understanding of what the outcome would be, that can be fairly devastating. So we always have to, to think about those things. And I kind of relate this in everything in this show. We kind of come down to, financial basis, right? Yeah. So, there's one thing about COVID vaccine. We couldn't control any of that. We had no idea that any of this stuff was going to happen to us. Right. Baseball, they made a conscious decision, like, hey, we're losing people left and right. And I wonder if they actually even thought about, man, there could be more issues and more injuries with pitchers. I kind of bet they didn't necessarily think through that.
They didn't see that coming.
I don't think they did. I don't know if they thought about the concession sales until
they definitely
now.
Didn't see that one coming.
I'm pretty sure they didn't on that either.
Yeah.
But some of these things, right? They're kind of like business decisions.
Yeah.
We kind of have to make and say, hey, listen, nothing's going to be perfect. If we're going to make a decision, number one, we have to look at the lifeblood. Can we continue to function? And frankly, the way that baseball has gone, especially in comparison to American football, baseball had fallen off a cliff compared to how football is. And we also understand football. Football, when you do not have a long week to prepare and you do not have some weeks off, the injuries are staggering.
Yep.
How badly things are. It always blows my mind. You go to the end of the season or towards the last 5 or 6 weeks of an NFL season compared to the beginning, the roster sometimes is different by 20 to 30% of the team. Yep. Because of people that have gotten hurt, right?
Yep.
And then they'll often say it was because we had a rough week. We basically had a Monday night game, and then we ended up playing on that Sunday or whatever it was. They had a Thursday game, had to come and play on the next week, and they always had a shorter period of time. So think about that for a second, because this is all about planning and coming up with a game plan. I'd say that, Heather, the same thing can be said in finance when you're looking at, how much time do I have before I really want to look at reducing my work schedule? And or retiring full or doing a sabbatical or doing a passion project and or whatever. And I think that a lot of folks, they kind of look at it as, well, we've got the money in the account. Let's just go ahead and do that. Or, we've got X amount of dollars. I should be fine. But they're not looking at that. What happens if things don't go exactly right? Or what if it's the wrong time period? Or what if you don't have the time you thought you had? Right. So, one of the craziest things was when you really look at the current bull market, we've kind of been going long and strong for a period of time. 2022 was a rough year. We had everything go wrong. I will honestly say the market did need to come down a little bit in 2020. It didn't have to be 2022. It could have been any year. Yeah. But we had gone gangbusters after the shutdown of 2020, right? So we had a full 2020 and 2021 where the market went hyperbolic. And all of a sudden what happened? The Fed started messing with interest rates. That's really the major crux of what happened in the market in 2022. Okay. 23, great year. 24 up until now, markets up double digits, doing exceedingly well, even though there are lots of fissures, there are lots of cracks, there are lots of issues that we can see in the broad economy. Didn't stop the market. Market's going hard and heavy and strong.
Right.
So when you think about those things, though, how long can something go at this speed? We've just been talking. What started this whole thing is pro pitchers. They can throw at 100 miles an hour. Yep. What if your average guy throws it, low 90s? If he's throwing low 90s and he's throwing 12 to 14 extra pitches a game over the course of a season, when he's about halfway through, which is where we are right now, roughly right after the All-Star break, that's a lot more wear and tear. It does the same thing to our investment portfolios. So we really have to understand what parts of our portfolio can withstand downturns, which portions can we rely on to replace income, which portions do we need to specifically put into place to avoid future taxation, because that's going to be the next shoe to drop, in my opinion. What we're going to see is, I feel that Congress is going to screw it up. And I really feel that we're going to see some form of reduction in Social Security. That's not an alarmist comment. It's a very frank comment about the mathematics behind there are more people retiring every day than ever in the history of the country. Guys, over 13,000 people a day are retiring at age 65. No, I'm sorry. They're not retiring. They're turning 65 and they're wanting to retire every day. 13,000 a day. A day. That is the highest number we're going to see. We're going to see roughly that number for the next 3 years, and then it'll start to slightly go down back into about 11,700, and then of course the baby boomer period will have kind of come to its close, and then we'll wait for the next major tick up. But guys, there are major things that are shifting out there, and the biggest thing that I see is that we do not have, as a whole, as a nation, we do not have a unified plan of how to sustain. And I'd say that, and that is not because we do not have the time to plan as a nation. It's because we just don't ever enact anything correctly. And I unfortunately see way too many investors do the same thing. They're like, well, John, I got $2 million. I'm fine. I was like, sure. I agree with that. You've saved a great amount of money, but how do you know how much of it is protected if the markets don't do the right thing?
Right.
How much of it is created specifically to produce an income stream that you wouldn't live off of? Because if you've saved a couple $1 million, at least the most people I know, $2, $3, $10 million or more, they like to live okay. They may have everything paid off. Yeah. They like cars. They like to eat out. They like to travel.
Trips.
They like trips. They like things. And I'm not saying, that they're living high on the hog, but that costs money, and usually it costs considerably more than what they're going to get from Social Security, right?
Yeah.
But when you look at things, I think Social Security is not going to be able to pay us, especially Gen X and the youngest of the baby boomers. I think that they're going to change it. Whether they reduce us across the board or they quit giving us cost of living adjustments, that is a big one, guys. You got to understand, if they did not give cost of living adjustments over the last 10 years, most Americans would have 30% less in their check each month. So does that add up? It absolutely does. And that, by the way, is bipartisan. Even during all this nonsense that's going on politically, bipartisan support to potentially just reduce or eliminate cost of living adjustments on Social Security if you've done a good job saving. And this show is not built for the absolute destitute of society. This is built for the people that have done a pretty darn good job saving and want to figure out how do they hold on to more of it, right? So I'm talking directly to our listeners out here. If you've done a good job saving, they're trying to find ways to cut it for us. So we have to make sure that we're not shortcutting other parts of the process. 5 parts of a plan is what we have to have for retirement: protection, income design, tax strategy, wealth transfer, and healthcare. I don't like long-term care insurance. I do not. But we have to plan what would happen if something happens to one of a couple and then the other person lasts for a long time. That's exactly what happened to my parents. My father had a stroke. He lasted for 7 years before he passed away. They blew through nearly $500,000 of their savings. My mother got none of it. And my mother is in pretty darn good health 3 years after my father's passed away. She'll probably live for another 20. So when you think about that, did it matter that my dad had to blow through $500,000? Yeah, it matters a lot. So we just want to make sure we're planning for that. Those 5 pillars are what creates the stability for a comfortable retirement. And notice, guys, it didn't have anything to do with stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, derivatives, options, hedges, any kind of product. It's planning. Planning is the most important part of hitting our goals. Just like MLB wanted to plan how they can try to make more money and not have their viewership fall off. Unfortunately, the fodder to that was pitchers' arms. What we want to do is make sure we're just planning correctly so we understand if there is something that we're going to have to give up a little bit on. Let's just make sure it's not the happiness and the true spirit of what you want your goals to achieve.
Helping you prevent financial injury in your retirement is the goal of having this plan in place and is the goal of John and his entire team at J. Hagan Capital. So let's get to work helping you put your plan in place. Visit us, retirementsolutionradio.com. We also have links posted in the show notes, so you can just click there or, again, find us anytime, retirementsolutionradio.com.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with John Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with John and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to John's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Inc. is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Inc. is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. It does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital. National license number 1882794.